Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views and analysis. WIONews.com. World is one.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
Hello and welcome to WION Live broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. First, a look at this hour's top headlines. Day of paralysis, protests across Israel as citizens raise alarm and clash with police over what they say and see as the country's descent towards autocracy. Israel's parliament raises first and passes first of several laws of the judicial overhaul. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky visits war-ravaged Kherson. He tours areas partially controlled by Russian forces. Hindenburg Research shorts Jack Dorsey's firm Block, alleging that the payment firm overstated user numbers. Shares of Block slide 20%, the steepest fall since 2020. Controversial gold mine in Thailand restarts operations more than 6 years after the government forced it to close over health and environmental concerns. He is 38 but raring to go as a fresh start beckons under Roberto Martinez. Cristiano Ronaldo is set to break the world record for most appearances by a male player in international football. The war in Ukraine has not just impacted the global supply chain, but also the wheels of geopolitics. The West has come together against Russia, and Russia has reached out for stronger ties with China. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the war has had a profound impact on Asia as well. Blinken's comments come after Chinese President Xi Jinping's state visit to Russia, where the two leaders discuss ways to boost strategic ties. Blinken says China is watching very carefully how U.S. and its allies respond to Russia's Ukraine war. Experts have long argued on the impact of the Ukraine war on China's military vis-a-vis Taiwan. According to Blinken, China will draw lessons from how the world comes together or doesn't to stand up against this type of aggression. Earlier, Blinken agreed with CIA's assessment, which says that China will gather required ability to invade Taiwan by 2027. Blinken, however, rejected the idea that China is providing lethal aid to Russia in its war against Ukraine. On the other hand, Taiwan is also losing some of its diplomatic allies. Honduras has said that it will begin establishing ties with Beijing instead of Taiwan. Honduras's reaction comes after Taiwan did not respond to its request to double its annual aid to $100 million. With this, there are now only 13 countries which actively back Taiwan against China. For more on this, we are joined by John Irith, Senior Policy Director for the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. John, thank you so much for joining us on WION. You know, there's growing concern that while the United States and NATO have managed thus far to stay united in their support for Ukraine in Russia's invasion of Ukraine, moving forward, there are many countries that are split right now, not because they support Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but geopolitically, they're concerned about what's going to happen in the future and which side they're going to take.
I think Secretary Blinken had it right when he said that countries and governments all over the world are watching carefully to see what happens. What Russia is doing is trying to alter a situation to its advantage through the use of military force. So what the Ukraine conflict will ultimately be is a test for whether military force remains a viable tool in which governments can try to change the positions and actions of other governments that they do not like. Obviously, we would like to see a world where military force is not the first resort, but the last resort for settling disputes between governments. But that's what Russia is testing out right now. And other governments, including China, are paying very close attention.
And how concerning is this alliance between China and Russia? And what more can the United States do at this point?
At this point, the Russia-China partnership is one of convenience primarily. They share certain interests, one of which is that they don't want to see NATO countries be perceived as successful. They want to be able to offer what they would consider an alternative to the leadership of NATO in the West. They also want to be able to keep that military tool as a prominent one, because that's one of the main options that Russia in particular has. I don't think China is preparing to invade Taiwan in the next few days or weeks or even years. But they certainly want to maintain the possibility of military action as a coercive tool to keep Taiwan from declaring independence, to keep Taiwan from behaving in too independent a fashion. They want to keep that threat available for potential use should time come to it.
Well, we'll be watching very closely. Thank you so much for that analysis, and thank you for joining us on WION.
You're very welcome.
Staying with U.S.-China relations, Chinese military says that it has monitored and driven away a U.S. destroyer with China alleges entered illegally into waters around the Parcel Islands in the South China Sea. According to an official statement, a guided missile destroyer intruded into China's territorial waters, accusing U.S. of compromising the peace and stability in the busy waterway. Earlier, the U.S. Navy said the destroyer is conducting routine operations in the South China Sea, adding that the U.S. will continue to fly, sail, and operate whenever international water and international law allows. The encounter comes amid rising tension between the United States and China. The United States has been shoring up alliances in the Asia-Pacific as it seeks to counter China's growing aggression in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait as well. The United States has announced massive relief for the H-1B visa holders. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services say that individuals traveling to the country on a business or tourist visa can now apply for new jobs and even appear in interviews. This comes after reports that the United States may increase the grace period for the H-1B visa workers when Presidential Advisory Subcommittee urged the government to extend the period from 60 days to 180 days. Individuals traveling to the country on a business or tourist visa, B1 and B2, can apply for new jobs and even appear in interviews. But the prospective employees must ensure that they have changed their visa status before starting new roles. In a note, the immigration body, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, said non-U.S. citizens are often unaware of options available to them. The announcement comes as relief for thousands of highly skilled foreign-born workers, including Indians, in the U.S., as they lost their jobs due to a series of recent layoffs at companies like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. Many of them are now struggling to find new employment within the stipulated 60-day period under their H-1B worker visa, and there are many issues an individual faces, like the tight time frame to find new alternatives, complex paperwork for transferring H-1B status, and the delays in processing at U.S. Immigration Services. This situation holds implications for the U.S. as well, as it risks losing highly skilled tech labor. For more on this, our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhan Sabal, sent us this report from New Delhi. Please take a look.
In a significant development that will be a positive news for many Indians who have been laid off in US, the US immigration authorities have said that when it comes to Indians or of course any non-immigrants on visas which are for business visas or for tourist visas, they can stay in US and apply for jobs. Now this is an important development because remember many Indians have been laid off in recent times from various tech companies, and this news of course will be a breather for them. Many Indian American groups and of course Indians have been hoping for this kind of development, because once they are terminated from their job, when they are laid off from their jobs, they have to leave the country according to some guidelines in a certain span of time. But now that is something that is not going to happen, and new guidelines have been issued by the US immigration authorities. With video journalist Chandrasekhar, Siddhan Sabal for WION in New Delhi.
In a school shooting in Denver, Colorado, the hunt is on for a 17-year-old boy who shot and injured 2 faculty members on Wednesday. The accused, Austin Lyle, shot and wounded the 2 faculty members when they were searching him down for weapons. After the shooting, Austin Lyle fled the school, still armed with the handgun. Following this, police issued a wanted notice against Lyle.
Officers and medical professionals from Denver Health Medical arrived on scene very, very quickly and discovered 2 adult males that had suffered gunshot wounds. Those 2 individuals were transported emergent to Denver Health Medical. One is currently in serious but stable condition. The other is currently in surgery, listed in critical condition.
The Denver police chief said that the school had a safety plan for Lyle in place. He was to be searched every day at the beginning of school. The shots were fired when the search was underway. The vehicle Lyle used to flee the scene was found 80 kilometers southwest of Denver. Reports said a body was found next to the vehicle. Officials are in the process of identifying the body and determining the cause of death.
Try to be as brief as possible today. What we do know today is that a male student...
This particular student actually had a safety plan that was in place where they were to be searched at the beginning of the school day every day. They had been searched previously to today and had never had a weapon on them before. However, today, during that search, which took place away from other students, away from other school staff, they did produce that weapon and fire shots.
The shooting left students and parents at the school terrified. Amy Clemens, one of the parents, said she felt sick by sending her kid to school every day.
Everyone should be able to go to school and feel safe. I hate to say that if we can't fight gun control or do something about it and get guns out of kids' hands, then they need a stronger line of defense in these high schools. I would hate for my kid to have to go to school with metal detectors and security resource officers, but you know what? It's not. These kids are going to be so impacted and every day be terrified.
Michael Hancock, the mayor of Denver, said the police would find the suspect and hold him accountable for his actions.
We are looking for the suspect. We will find that suspect, and we will hold that suspect accountable for his actions this morning in placing everyone in danger and certainly wounding the 2 staff members who were doing their job and trying to keep everyone safe at the time.
Weather conditions in California continue to worsen. The latest storm has left tens of thousands without power and under evacuation warnings. Experts have warned that the heavy rain and snow could bring more flooding to the already rain-soaked state. More in our next report.
In Central California, cars abandoned in murky floodwater marked the latest lashing in a long line of powerful storms. Intense winds and driving rain struck the storm-weary state, leaving tens of thousands facing evacuation warnings Wednesday. Another atmospheric river storm dumped water in parts of the already saturated southern and central California regions, which have been hit hard by a relentless string of storms that began in late December.
Sometimes there's drought and sometimes there's lots of rain.
Near the town of Boulder Creek in Northern California's Santa Cruz Mountains, Tyrone Clark and his neighbors cleared fallen trees from the road with their own chainsaws, directing traffic around downed power lines.
This is one of the top ones. I think in the 90s we had some that were like this. But I think the trees are just bigger now and not handling the weight. And, you know, like this is the mountains. Like if you live in the mountains every 10 years or so, it's going to be hard.
The National Weather Service said the rain combined with snowmelt left much of the region under flood watches Wednesday. In Central California, floodwaters swamped houses, roads, and farmland, leaving spring crops underwater. The California Office of Emergency Services said Tuesday more than 14,000 people statewide were under orders to seek higher ground, with evacuation warnings issued for another 47,000. The rapid succession of Pacific storms during the past 3 months has created an abrupt reversal for a state plagued by drought and wildfires. a swing in weather extremes that experts say is symptomatic of human-induced climate change.
Elon Musk's Tesla has become a serious problem for Chinese automakers. Massive discounts announced by Tesla on its cars have triggered a price war in Chinese markets. Tesla has made some of its models almost 50% less expensive in China than the United States and Europe, resulting in stiff competition to automakers. Discounts of up to $1,451 started in October of last year. Elon Musk's electric vehicle maker escalated the discounts in January with another discount that left Tesla's locally made cars up to 14% cheaper than last year, and in some cases almost 50% less expensive than in the US and Europe. Musk's move left rivals with little option but to follow the American automaker's step. Local startups such as XPeng and NIO, as well as leading international brands like Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz, have started offering discounts of up to $10,000. The steep cuts have come as China's auto sector faces a tough time due to long-running COVID restrictions. Chinese sales have been impacted by the removal of state subsidies on electric vehicle purchases at the end of last year. Supply chain disruptions have hurt industries globally as well. The International Olympic Committee has once again reiterated its position of neutrality despite a growing tide of anger over plans to allow Russian and Belarusian athletes to compete at the 2024 Paris Olympics. President Thomas Bach says that his body cannot be referee in political disputes. Bach was in his native Germany to address the RUHR political forum with the sporting world keen for an update on the burning debate in international sports. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has polarized sport as well, and over a dozen protesters gathered outside the venue. They displayed placards and pictures of bombed-out Ukrainian cities and called for a complete exclusion of Russian and Belarusian athletes from the Olympics. Bach, though, didn't flinch.
We know well that politics rules the world. We know well that our decisions have political implications, and we have to include that in our thinking. But we should not make the mistake to raise ourselves to referees of political disputes, because we will be crushed by these political powers.
Ukraine has led calls for the exclusion of Russia and Belarusian athletes. A pressure group of close to 40 nations has threatened to boycott the Games if the IOC goes ahead with plans to allow spokespersons from those countries to compete as neutrals. A pathway for Olympic qualification is being explored through the Asian Games in China. A joint statement for the presidents Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping following the Chinese president's visit to Moscow condemned Western nations for their stance. I'm quoting for the statement now that the parties oppose the politicization of sports and hope to use the unique role of physical culture and sports to promote solidarity and peace. I love New York. It's one of the most iconic logos ever created. It was first sketched by Milton Glaser in the back of a taxi in the 1970s. But now the logo has been reworked. The new logo swaps the I for a we in an effort to reflect the collective spirit of the city following the COVID pandemic. The new logo was unveiled by the city officials and its creators this week and is designed to promote the city as it bounces back from, as I mentioned, the COVID-19 pandemic. The updated logo features the same black capitalized letters as the original one, rather than the initial typewriter-style font. As for the classic heart at the center of the logo, well, that stays. The new campaign features a rounded three-dimensional heart that almost looks like an emoji. However, native New Yorkers are not happy about the rebranding. Many on social media expressed their disapproval with the new logo design, saying that if they wanted to do something, they should have gone in a completely different direction versus trying to update a classic. Officials now say that the new logo is not meant to be a replacement. It's intended to be a contemporary complement. That's all the time we have from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. Thank you so much for staying with us and watching. More news and headlines coming up next on WION World is One.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground at Gravitas? We don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views and analysis.